I was about 13 or 14 and I was babysitting two boys for some church members. This was a night where the parents were going to be gone for pretty much until about 2:30 in the morning. Anyway, they lived in an apartment complex, one of those small ones that had 2 floors and 4 places in each spot. They're on the bottom floor with 2 bedrooms on either side of the apartment, with the kitchen on the left and the living room on the right, with a sliding glass door to a small patio and a public bathroom next to the front door. It was about 1:30 and I knew they would be getting home soon. The kids were knocked out and I had finished my homework and they didn't have cable, but they had a couple of DVDs to watch, so I grabbed one to make the night go quicker. I was already tired and had nodded off a couple of times. At about 2, I could hear knocking on the front door. Knowing the parents had a key, I did nothing but sit there in the dark with the TV glowing. Being a paranoid person who watches and reads enough horror, I grabbed the baseball bat that was next to the couch. And what happened next will haunt me forever. I heard a small voice, almost like a young woman's, telling me that the bat that I grabbed wasn't going to help me. My heart stopped, and I realized the patio door blinds weren't closed. My eyes shifted slowly to the door, and I saw someone on the patio staring in. I couldn't make anything out, other than that they were very short and wide. I screamed and ran to the kids' room. Thankfully, they were still asleep. Sadly, this was before I had a cell phone, and there were no cordless phones. All I did was push the dresser in front of the door and stare at the room's one window. That's when it became dark, as a shadow loomed on the window. The knocking started again, and the creepy woman assured me that she wasn't going to hurt me and to please come out. The window was being knocked on so hard, I was afraid it would break. The kids finally woke up and started screaming, they were so scared. I was a big girl, and could at the time lift my own weight, but knowing I had 2 kids with me, I became vulnerable and afraid. Within 2 seconds, I heard the father yell out at the person standing at the window trying to get in, and the person ran off. The front door opened and there was harsh knocking on the kids' bedroom door. Thankfully, it was the parents, and after I let them in and put the dresser back, I explained what happened, and they called the police. When the police arrived, they found nothing but that the bushes that hid the patio were cut up and ripped through. I babysat for them once more after that, but after they moved away about 5 months later, I never babysat for anyone again. And again to this day, I know that the woman was long gone, but every time I hear a knock, a chill runs through me. I began babysitting when I was a freshman in high school to earn extra money. I was babysitting for this one family who had a little girl that was 9 and a little boy that was 7. The parents seemed okay, if a tad crotchety, giving me a full schedule to follow and jokingly threatening to beat any boy who might mysteriously show up after they left. It felt cruel for them to accuse me of even knowing a boy, given that I looked like an overgrown baby with frizzy hair at that age. Almost immediately after the parents leave, the little girl starts to sing in this creepy high-pitched voice. After the girl stopped singing, the boy looked at me and insisted that we play an inappropriate game that I do not want to repeat here. Looking back now, I know the kid probably just heard the term on TV, knew the word was shocking, and said it just for my reaction. I totally bought into it at the time, sputtering wide-eyed and changing the subject quickly. These kids were hell for the next hour. I wouldn't let them watch South Park on TV because their parents did not seem like the type to allow their precious 7 and 9-year-olds to watch a show like that. As soon as I said no, the little girl said casually that they would just go and play video games in the family room. I knew exactly where this was headed. I said no to that as well, and they could watch any other TV show in the living room while I made them dinner. The parents had left instructions to make them sandwiches. Before I had even got out the bread, I heard a massive crash. It seemed like the little girl had broken glass. Tutting and pissed, but ultimately with no way to punish her, I cleaned it up while these 2 incredibly weird kids watched with wide eyes. After dumping the broken glass in the trash, I went back to making the sandwiches. I'm a vegetarian, so while the kids had chicken, I made a simple salad for myself. Just as I was finishing, the little boy screamed out in what sounded like an incredible amount of pain. Nonetheless, I ran over to the couch in the living room to check on him. He screamed that he hurt his ankle and started dramatically flopping back onto the couch. While I tried to figure out how he had hurt his ankle, the little girl slipped out of the room. I was aware of this, but didn't really pay it any mind, focused on the little boy pretending to be in pain. He kept saying he wanted to try and stand, but it hurt too much, over and over again until his eyes suddenly flicked to just behind me, where I could see the little girl standing there with a sinister smile on her face. After seeing his little sister, he was miraculously healed. At this point, I was just thinking these kids were really weird, craved attention a little too much, and probably needed more parental involvement. I set out the sandwiches for the two to eat at the dining table, went to get us a soda and returned. After pouring the soda for both of them, I realized they hadn't even taken a bite out of their sandwiches yet. I asked them what they were waiting for. They both smiled and said they were waiting for me to take a bite of mine first. I'm so glad I had the gut feeling to open up the top part of my salad sandwich, because when I did, I saw glass. Broken glass. Broken glass that I'd put in the trash. I stared in horror at the two little kids staring at me with menacing twin grins. I lost it and started shouting at them. At the very least, they could have really injured my mouth. Instead of crying or apologizing or pretending to be ashamed or confused, these two little sinister kids began laughing. Not like a normal kid's laugh. It was too low. It wasn't that silly kid's laugh. It was low and threatening. I'll never forget that noise. My immediate reaction was, these kids are too young to be laughing like that. I called my older sister and cried about what had happened, and she came over and took over for me. We left the house with chills after the parents arrived. I never babysat those two again. What I can't get past is the level of premeditation that went into sprinkling that broken glass in my salad sandwich, and the remorseless way they responded to me getting upset. They were unlike any two kids I've ever met before. This experience still shakes me up to this day. I don't know exactly what happened. I live in a very safe neighborhood, which makes this even creepier because it goes to show you never know what lies beneath. My nephew was about 5 years old. I was asked to babysit him for the night. I was young at the time and didn't really know how to watch a kid, so I figured I'd just put up on Netflix for a few hours. We went to the kids section of Netflix and started watching some show about talking cars. This was at about 5 p.m., so it was still light out. Perpendicular to the couch is a sliding glass door. The curtain for the door was open. I was sitting on the couch with my nephew as we watched TV together. This went on for a few hours until it was dark outside. In my foolishness, I turned on some lights, but I never did shut the curtain. It was one of those things where other people can see, but all you see from inside is the blackness of the night. My backyard is adjacent to a big field, so there are no streetlights out there or anything. Suddenly, I heard the sound of one of the deck chairs being dragged across the deck. I instantly recognized the sound and just assumed it was my parents. I didn't think anything of it, so we watched TV for maybe about an hour until it was bedtime. When I brought my nephew to bed, I realized my parents had been home and I asked them who was out on the deck. They both denied ever going out there. Creeped out, I went to the kitchen and turned on the deck light. From the window, I can see that the deck chair had been dragged from its usual spot at the outside table. About 5 to 10 feet away to the sliding glass door, the chair was directly facing the window, less than a foot away from the glass. From where it was, a person would have had a perfect view of me and my nephew. The chair was positioned like someone had just pulled it up and taken a seat, like we were the show. I never noticed anyone outside the window or felt like I was being watched. It gets creepier. The next day I found 2 big handprints with the fingers spread out on my bedroom window. My bedroom window was on the first floor. Luckily, the room used to be my brother's, and he had some problems with sneaking girls in. So my parents installed some pretty good locks to the point where the window could not be opened. To this day, I have no idea what happened. It's been several years, with no other signs of peeping Tom since. Safe to say, the incident shook me to my core. I don't leave curtains open at night anymore.